This is what a romantic comedy used to look like in 1999.
Oh, shit! Bugger!
God!
I'm so sorry. Here, let me...
Get your hands off!
I'm really sorry.
There is no franchise or no extended universe here. It is just simply about a bookshop owner, a movie star, and the moment she gets orange juice on her shirt.
And I thank God I'm alive. You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you.
A boy who sang Frankie Valli in front of the entire school for a girl who wanted nothing to do with him.
It turns out you'll go somewhere new and meet people who make you feel worthwhile again.
It's Christmas Eve, and we are going to celebrate being young and being alive.
Anything like me, you found yourself reaching for these films again and again. You probably know half the dialogue by heart without ever trying to. The cottage, the bleachers, the orange juice, these things live somewhere specific in you. I used to think that my love for these movies was just nostalgia, that I only liked them because the memory of being young softened everything around them. But nostalgia doesn't explain the actual craft. There's something very specific and deliberate happening here, hidden right under the surface of the love stories and the grand gestures in the rain. Once you actually see it, you can't really watch these films the same way again. By the end of this, I think you'll finally be able to put a name to a feeling you've probably had for a long time, but haven't quite been able to pin down. For most of us, these movies are the gold standard. We treat them like sacred texts, films that defined a generation and set a bar that modern rom-coms rarely seem to hit. But here's the irony history tends to buff out. While we see them as masterpieces today, at the time, the industry dismissed them as disposable. You'd assume that because they're legendary now, they must have been massive, undisputed wins. But the financial and critical reality was a lot messier. In the 90s and 2000s, these films were the ultimate critical underdogs, victims of a massive cookie-cutter bias. Because they were colorful, because they were led by women, or because they ended with a kiss, the gatekeepers labeled them as frivolous. They saw the surface, the plaid skirts and the soccer fields, and labeled them as chick flicks. While Hollywood was chasing what they called real art, pouring hundreds of millions into prestige dramas like Waterworld or The Bridges of Madison County, they viewed these comedies as mere fillers to keep the lights on. They didn't realize that by letting these directors work with smaller budgets and lower expectations, they accidentally allowed them to be authentic. Because the industry wasn't looking, these creators could inject their genuine obsessions into the DNA of the film. Take Amy Heckerling. She was a proven hitmaker, yet every major studio passed on Clueless. They missed the fact that she had spent years obsessing over Jane Austen's Emma, asking herself at every writer's block, what would Jane Austen do here? The result was a precision-engineered blueprint, where every Beverly Hills humiliation mapped perfectly back to 1815. It's that same over-engineered DNA found in 10 Things I Hate About You, which grew from a raw, angry teenager's diary into a Shakespearean masterpiece. These directors weren't just checking boxes. They were fighting for the texture of every scene and the structural integrity of every joke. Now, compare that to what rom-coms look like today. Most of what gets called a romantic film right now is either a book adaptation of something that was a bestseller 2 summers ago, or, and I'll be blunt about this, something that reads like it was written on Wattpad at 2 in the morning by someone who has watched too many other rom-coms and not enough actual life. I'll do a full video on the Wattpad romance pipeline at some point because that deserves its own conversation. But the point is this. You can have a $150 million budget and a crew of hundreds and a streaming platform behind you and still produce something that feels completely hollow because the passion isn't in the room and the audience will always feels that. People usually think these 2000 classics are the gold standard because they had massive stars and beautiful houses, but it's actually much deeper than that. It's about the fact that every single shot was used to tell a story. When Nancy Meyers spends all that time on a kitchen or a living room, she isn't just trying to make it look pretty. She is actually building a physical version of what the characters are feeling. In The Holiday, the houses are the whole point. Amanda's place in LA is a giant glass box. It looks like success, but it's actually cold and exposed. There's nowhere for her to hide or feel safe. Then you have Iris's cottage in England. It's small and messy and full of books. When Amanda finally walks into that cottage and just starts crying, the movie doesn't have to explain why with a long speech. You already get it. The cottage gave her permission to be a human being in a way her own glass mansion never could. That level of care is what makes these movies feel real to us. It's in the texture of a rug or a pillow, because those things are actually helping tell the story. Now, compare that to the stuff we see on streaming today. We've entered this era of the content algorithm, where everything feels scrubbed clean. In a movie like Mother of the Bride, the locations just look like staged Airbnbs. The houses don't tell you a single thing about who these people are. Even the lighting is bright nad flat, so it looks good on a phone screen while you're busy doing other things. Hollywood still has the money to copy the look of the old classics, but they've lost the obsessed directors who are willing to fight for the feel. They're making products to fill a library, while the older directors were making movies they actually cared about. You can buy the most expensive set in the world, but you can't buy soul. Back in the 2000s, casting wasn't about who was trending on TikTok or fitting some executive spreadsheet. It was purely about instinct, like finding the actual human being who made the story work. Look at Amanda Bynes. She literally had to fight for Channing Tatum to get the lead in She's the Man. At the time, he was just some guy from a Mountain Dew commercial, and the producers weren't convinced. But Bynes knew, because she saw the star power before anyone else did. Same thing with Kate Hudson. She basically staged an intervention to get the studio to cast Matthew McConaughey, because she knew that specific friction was what the movie needed. Even Julia Roberts didn't do Notting Hill for the brand. She did it because she read the script and realized it was too good to let anyone else touch it. Today, that's gone. Now, casting feels like a PR strategy. Take anyone but you. I'm not saying it isn't fun, and Glen Powell is clearly a natural, but the success of that movie wasn't really about the script. It was about the leaked romance and the red carpet flirting between him and Sydney Sweeney. In the 2000s, the chemistry was the movie. Now, it feels like the movie is just an excuse to run a PR campaign. One thing that really bugs me about modern rom-coms is that the characters feel like they didn't exist until the camera started rolling. In the 2000s, these women had lives. They had things they wanted that had absolutely nothing to do with the guy. Think about Viola in She's the Man. She isn't disguising herself as her brother to find a boyfriend. She's doing it because she's a soccer player who refuses to be told she can't play. The romance is almost an accident because she's so focused on her own ambition. When you give characters a real drive, you get movies like Set It Up. That was a tiny Netflix budget, but it worked because the characters had a motive. They were just two exhausted assistants trying to trick their bosses into dating so they finally could have a weekend off. Because they had their own goals, the chemistry between Zoe Deutch and Glen Powell felt earned. It wasn't forced. It just happened in the middle of all that chaos. The best love stories aren't about two people becoming the same. They're about finding someone who actually likes your rough edges. 10 Things I Hate About You is the perfect example. The writers didn't try to fix Kat Stratford or make her softer so the audience would like her. They just found a guy like Patrick who didn't need her to change. Like in the paintball scene, she doesn't play the damsel and she definitely doesn't let him win. She takes him apart, and he loves her more for it. That kind of authentic, messy energy is something you just can't manufacture with a bigger budget. At the end of the day, we aren't just nostalgic for the 2000s. We're responding to the fact that these movies were actually built with care. These directors were obsessed with the details, the houses, the casting, the weird little character flaws. They treated chick flicks like they were high art. And that's why these films still have a pulse today, while the new stuff feels like it was made by an algorithm. Subscribe to the channel. I promise I won't make you stand outside my window with a boombox, but I might make you rethink your favorite movie.